ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नमस्ते दोस्तों today I am starting my next video on the book by Sadhu Om, A Light on the Teachings of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. So the heading is How to Make Thoughts Subside, and verse 218. All thoughts, in Sanskrit we call them as vrittis, arise only because the unreal feeling I am this body has become well soaked and firmly established in us. All these thoughts will be destroyed only if we vigilantly practice self inquiry and thereby root out the unreal feeling I am this body. The thought this fleshy body alone is I is indeed the one thread on which the various thoughts are strung. Therefore, if one goes within by keenly scrutinizing who am I and what is the place from which I rise, the thoughts will perish and self knowledge will spontaneously shine forth within the cave of the heart as I. Verse 219. If we feel I am this body, thoughts either about the world or about God will immediately rise with great vigor and attachment. Having risen thus, those thoughts will multiply and increase in the form of likes and dislikes, and intense misery will then result. During sleep, when one does not rise as an individual who feels I am this fleshy body, do any thoughts rise either about the world or about God? Therefore, know that the tendency to identify a body as I alone is the cause for appearance of world and God. Verse 221. The tendency to identify this gross body as I in the waking state alone is the root which paves the path for ignorance to subsist as the subtle body in dream and to hide as the causal body in sleep. Therefore, if we abide as self, having repeatedly practiced self attention and having thereby put an end to this root tendency to identify the gross body as I, the tendency to identify with the other two bodies will also be destroyed automatically. This can be compared with Vichara Sangram, chapter 1, where Sri Bhagwan says, all the three bodies in the form of the five sheaths are contained in the feeling I am this body. If that the feeling I am this body alone is removed, all the three bodies, physical, subtle, and causal body, the three bodies will be removed automatically, since all the other bodies, the subtle and causal bodies, subsist only by clinging to this feeling I am this gross body. It is not necessary to remove each of the three bodies individually. See also line 27 to 30 of Sri Ramana Vachana Saram on page 230 of the Mountain Path, October 1984. Verse 222. So long as any one of the three bodies is identified as I, it will be impossible to put an end to all the tendencies or vasanas, which are the seed forms of thoughts. Know that in order to put an end to all tendencies, any kind of effort other than the elevated practice, sadhana of turning and attending to self will be of no avail. See, this word vasana means rep- repetition of thoughts take the form of desire, and these repeated thoughts and desires, they are embedded in our chitta, the subconscious mind, and they are called vasanas. These vasanas are the main cause of continuation of thought arising from the soul. So these vasanas are the main cause of thought process. So vasanas, they are stored in our subconscious mind or chitta from so many thousand and thousands births earlier. Next, intermittent attempts. Intermittent attempts, verse 223. The state in which our power of attention, which now sees the objects that exist in front of our eyes, sees its own existence. I am having suddenly become introverted by giving up all objective attention and turning towards I, is alone the state of true austerity, tapas or yoga. If our power of attention is used in any other way, that is only an objective attention, that is opposed to true tapas or yoga. Verse 224. Know that a vichari, a person practicing self-inquiry, who makes effort with the liking always to turn inwards to see the eye with the inner eye, will not be able to experience the pure self-consciousness merely by the process of sitting majestically with closed eyes for a long period of time at once. See, self abidance, self awareness, and self attention, that is a sort of concentration, single hearted, on the real I, Atma. That is the most important thing for self realization. If at one single attempt you strive persistently for long hours without limit to pull self words and restrain the running mind without leaving your hold on self attention, you will find that you are not able to maintain a steady intensity of self attention. Therefore, after making one attempt for a few minutes, relax your effort for a while and then again make a fresh attempt with renewed effort. Verse 222. If 26, sorry, 226. If you continue incessantly to struggle for many hours at a stretch to turn your power of attention toward self, your effort will become slack and the intensity of your self attention will decrease. On the other hand, if you take rest as and when each attempt becomes slack, and then if you repeatedly make fresh efforts to turn selfwards with each fresh attempt, your self attention will gain an increased vigor and intensity. If we press our hand on a weighing scale and if we try to maintain the pressure continuously for a long time by not removing our hand, as time passes, the dial will indicate that the pressure is gradually decreasing. But if instead we relax by removing our hand for a while, and if we then again apply the pressure, the dial will indicate that with each fresh attempt, the pressure is increasing. Similarly, instead of struggling to maintain the intensity of self attention for a long time, if we make intermittent attempts to turn our attention keenly towards self, with each fresh attempt, our self attention will gain a greater degree of intensity and clarity. Verse 227, when the mind, our power of attention, having little by little gained the strength to turn selfwards, finally at one time reaches the heart due to the intensity and clarity of its self attention. It will drown in self, having been caught in the clutch of the grace of God, who has ever been waiting without the least forgetfulness to catch it, and hence it will never again turn outwards to no objects other than I. So, dear friends, here the word heart is used. Heart is not this biological heart which purifies our blood and all. No, that heart is separate and it is called spiritual heart. The biological heart is on the left side and spiritual heart is on the right side. Further, Maharshi Ramana has clarified many times that actually speaking, heart, Atma, and Paramatma are not different. Please, this is very important point. Heart is just nothing other than Atma, and Atma is Paramatma. So we say spiritual heart, Atma or Paramatma. Exactly, it is accordingly non-dual, single, absolutely one Shakti, one power. You say spiritual heart, you say Atma, you say God. Exactly, the power is same. As electricity reaches our homes from the power station, so each and every home is receiving the same electricity. Similarly, our Atma is part of Paramatma. Okay. These things we have to keep in mind. Otherwise, this Atam Gyan, Brahma Vidya, Brahma Gyan or self knowledge will be difficult to understand. So, these, you know, basic things you should understand. Then all these verses will be clear. And in the first hearing, don't worry, just hear and contemplate. Don't worry. First time you will not be understanding completely, and it is not necessary also. It's okay. First thing, increase the interest. That is the most important. You must increase your interest towards spiritual teaching spiritual knowledge. That is the most important. First, you become anxious, then take interest, and slowly, because the whole knowledge is there in your Atma, dear friends, it is there, but it is in the dormant state, inactive. Otherwise, Atma of everybody is having this knowledge of Upanishads, Vedas, Gita, and everything. Verse 228. Knowing that this is indeed the peerless divine marriage of grace, the power of attention will become settled and will attain firm abidance in self. To remain steadily established in self abidance, being firmly bound by self, in self, having known oneself to be that self is alone the state of supreme bliss. See, Hriday, Atma, Brahm, and bliss. Bliss is the name of God, Anand. And the very nature of our Atma is bliss. When a person realizes the self, he remains 24 hours immersed in the bliss. This bliss is eternal. Heading is watching the breath. 42nd. See the source of prana, source of mind is our soul, our Atma. Please try to understand this. If one takes to self attention, the practice of keenly observing only the consciousness I, then one need not perform any other practice sadhana. But let those who cannot take to this practice of self attention from the very outset practice for a short while either repetition of mantras, japa, or watching of the movement of the breath, and then let them give up all such practices and cling only to self attention. See, watching the breath, it is the preliminary practice because finally it will reach the self process of self inquiry. Verse 230. The path that Sadguru Sri Ramana was for 54 years repeatedly teaching to us for our salvation was only this primary practice of self-attention. Know that the practice of watching the breath was only one among the hundreds of thousands of other methods that is taught so as to guide on the path towards salvation. Even those people who are not ready to come to the path of self inquiry, which alone was his principal teaching. Refer to verse 208 and 209. Verse 230. For those who attend keenly to both the inward going and the outward coming movements of the breath, the length of both these movements will decrease, and within a short time the breath will be rising and subsiding only within a very slight manner. If they attain the state, it is a sufficient sign to show that the agitated activity of the mind has decreased. Therefore, at that stage, let them give up attending to the breath and let them attend instead only to the self. Verse 232. If you fix your attention upon the one power within you, which is experienced in the form of the effort that draws the breath within and then pushes it out, then retention of the breath, kumbhaka, will be attained without difficulty or strain. Verse 233. But if you think that effort of yours to be something other than I, no benefit will be gained from the retention, that is kumbhaka. And even though you understand this effort of yours to be only yourself, if your attention does not cling to that first person conscious I, know that even this practice will only be a buffoonery. Verse 234. Relating to the breath, there are two suitable methods of practice. Sadhana. One method is after watching the movements of the breath for a short while, in order that the raging activity of wavering mind may subside, to leave that breath attention and to engage in self attention. The other method is to attend within oneself to the one power that draws in and pushes out the breath, knowing that one power is not other than the consciousness I, Atma. For some people, these methods are appropriate. Verse 235. In whatever teaching he gave, the inner aim of Sadhguru Sri Ramana was only to turn our power of attention somehow or other so as to fix it firmly upon our existence consciousness I am. If you ask why this is so, the reason is that God, the original reality, exists only as the first person existence, and hence he cannot be seen as a second person, an object other than I. Next, heading 43rd, self inquiry and other methods of practice, sadhana. Verse 236. For those who listen and pay heed to what Sri Ramana Bhagwan has said, the path of self enquiry is very easy. Only to those who ask, what is this path? What is that path? Having already confused their mind by learning so much, does it become necessary to teach all the other superficial and extroverted methods of sadhana, saying, first, subdue the breath by practicing pranayama, subdue the tongue by observing silence, subdue the mischief of the mind by practicing meditation. Verse 237. From the mouth of Sri Ramana Bhagwan, words sometimes arose as if commending other methods such as watching the breath or japa. This apparently was in order to shut the mean mouth of bystanders, those people who were attached to the practice of traditional yogic and Vedantic methods of sadhana, by giving them no room to find fault, saying Bhagwan has set aside all the ancient methods, showing complete indifference to them. Verse 238. If the mind practices anything, any one thing, incessantly, it will naturally gain one pointedness in that one thing. However, rather than any external object, the first person consciousness I is alone the most worthy thing for the mind to have as the target of its attention. It, is it not? By taking any second person object, such as the movement of the breath or the right side of the chest, as the target of its attention, the mind will attain only state of temporary absorption in that object. Verse 239, the state in which the mind, by the strength of practice, abhyasa bala, abides or immerses itself in the attention to any second person object, however exalted that object may be, is only a state of temporary absorption of the mind, manolaya. This is temporary. Some people, take this manolaya, the final stage. That is manonasa. On the other hand, by abiding in the state of self attention, the natural state of true awakening, the state of destruction of the mind, that is manonasa. Nasa means destruction, will be attained. Since this natural state of self knowledge alone is our goal, cling firmly only to this flawless practice sadhana or incessantly think I have mentioned in my previous videos also. Again, I repeat for your benefit. Sit for meditation. Recite Om Japa for few minutes. Your mind will subside, it will be weakened. Then raise the query, who am I? Contemplate where from I have come. What is my goal? What I have done to achieve my goal so far? Am I in the progress state or just in the query state? Just say, who am I? But do not use who am I as a mantra. This is a very, very problematic situation. Many people, they start a japa. Who am I? Who am I? They carry on repeating this as a mantra. My dear, no. This is ignorance of the real process. Just contemplate, who am I? Then switch over the gear to the stage of I am. No, you see, not who am I? I am the Atma. Do not take it as a answer, but self attention, self awareness. First thing, do not repeat who am I as a mantra. Then do not take I am the Atma as a answer to who am I. Please, very important. Who am I? Then have self awareness, self attention without repetition. Just be aware, just abide in the self. I am the soul. I am the self. This will be, if you can concentrate on this awareness, self attention, and abide in the self, it will take a very less time to reach self realization. Again, I repeat, sit for meditation, do some Om Japa, then s- ask yourself, who am I? Then I am going. See, the who is the person putting this query? Our ego. Please think. Ego. This ego have this query, who am I? Then just have a affirmation, positive affirmation that I am slowly and steadily going deeper, deeper, deeper and deeper inwardly to my spiritual heart, reaching the door of the spiritual heart, then, then entering the spiritual heart, reach the source, reach my source, and merge with the self, merging with the self. Then visualize my mind is destroyed, not destroyed. Please never say in past tense, past perfect and all. No, always in present continuous. My dear friend, very important point. If you say, my mind is destroyed, immediately the mind will retaliate because it is not destroyed so easily. So never say, my mind is destroyed, ego is destroyed. No, dear, then you will be falling in a pit, in a ditch. So always say, my mind is being destroyed, present continuous. Otherwise, mind will retaliate. It will say, I am very much there. I am not destroyed. But you say, my mind, my ego are being destroyed. Both are subsiding. Yes, that is a legal process. If you say destroyed, then it becomes a problem. Well, we have to be very, 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 very cautious. We have to use our wisdom, viveka, power of discrimination. So never say it is done. No, its mind is very, very clever. It will catch you. Verse 240. The one pointedness of mind which is gained by the practice of repetition of a mantra, japa, or meditation, dhyana, will also be gained by practicing self inquiry. But in a very easy manner, without the need of any restriction or restraint, such as those that are to be observed while practicing other methods of practice sadhana, rather than the common existence consciousness I am, which is always experienced by all people. What more worthy and easy target of attention, dhyana, laksana is now needed. Verse 241. Whatever kind of person they may be, everyone says, I am, so that obstacle can there be for anyone to attend unceasing, unceasingly to that self-consciousness I am. Therefore, without giving room for an iota of doubt, attend with love and joy only to your own being. Next is, why is practice difficult? This is 44th heading. Why is practice sadhana difficult? Verse 242. When we are lacking in earnestness or faith, Shraddha, whatever practice sadhana we may take to will appear to be equally difficult. But if our earnestness is firm and one pointed, no sadhana will be felt to be difficult, and without any aid, we will be able to remain firmly established in the state of self abidance. Self abidance means leaving all the thoughts aside. Just concentrate. I am the self. This is known as self abidance, self awareness, self attention. Self abidance, self awareness, self attention. Verse 243. Where there is a will, there is a way. That is, if a sincere liking to attain something arises in one's heart, a path whereby one can attain it will also be found, and because of that liking, one's mind will unceasingly seek the goal until it is attained. Only when the liking to attain that goal does not truly arise in one's heart will experience difficulty in the practice sadhana or means adopted to attain it. Know that this is the secret underlying all methods of practice. Verse 244. To the extent to which one approaches and lives close to true devotees, to that extent will the liking arise in one's heart to attain salvation, the real goal of human life. By having more and more association with such true devotees, that liking will gradually increase until finally one will attain salvation by abiding firmly in self. Heading is love for the state of self. 45th heading. Verse 245. By great love for the fourth, the state of mere being, the natural state of self, which is known as Turiya or the fourth state, we can go above, transcending the three states of waking, dream, and sleep. By means of this Turiya state is attained when our thoughts stop arising from the self. By means of that, that is also known as superconscious state. There are no thoughts, thoughtless, complete silence. Silence means no rising of thoughts from the Atma. By means of breath control and so on, the transcending of the three states will not happen. Is it proper to investigate illusion? That is it proper to seek to attain the state of self by breath control or by any other such effort involving an attention to second or third person object, which are products of illusion, that is Maya? Heading is gaining one pointedness in self. Serial number 46. Verse 246. For whatever thing is liking or love arises in you, upon that thing your mind will certainly gain one pointedness, because such is the nature of the mind. Unless a real love for self arises in you, you will not turn within and attend to it one pointedly. Instead, you will always be telling some excuse or other for not doing so. Verse 247. When will a real love for self arise in you? Whatever your intellect decide to be the greatest and most worthy thing, for that thing alone will a love arise in you. The intellect of a mature spiritual aspirant will decide that self alone is the greatest and most worthy thing, and hence he will have real love for self. But to the intellects of immature people, the objects of this world alone will appear to be great and worthy to be attained, and hence their desire for those objects will constantly be increasing. Verse 248. When will the intellect decide that self alone is the greatest thing? The intellect will esteem something as the greatest according to its decision as to what is eternal and what is ephemeral. What can be correctly decided by the intellect to be eternal? Only that thing which can be decided to be real is unquestionably eternal. Other things are only ephemeral, means temporary, objects that are fit to be discarded. Verse 249. How to decide what is real? Whatever exists always and unceasingly, whatever exists without ever undergoing any change, and whatever shines by its own light of consciousness without depending upon the aid of any other thing, either to know it or to make it known, that alone is to be decided as real, is it not? Compare Maharishi's Gospel 8th page 63, where Sri Bhagwan says, what is the standard of reality? That alone is real, which exists by itself, which reveals itself by itself, and which is eternal and unchanging. Verse 250. Existing always and unceasingly means to be deathless and indestructible. Existing without ever undergoing any change means to be devoid of a moment, achala, either in time or in space, shining by its own light, means to be the consciousness that itself clearly knows its own existence, and not to be an insensate object that is known only by the aid of some other thing. Knowing that the definition of reality is such, scrutinize and decide what is real. Verse 251. Whatever satisfies this definition of reality, having all the aforesaid three characteristics, alone is to be accepted as real. Therefore, scrutinize and see whether there is anything in this world that can satisfy the definition. If you scrutinize carefully, you will find that every object exists for some time and then disappears, that every object undergoes change and is devoid of stability, and that every object is known only by the aid of some other thing. Verse 252. Therefore, none of the objects that are known through the five senses can satisfy the aforesaid definition of reality, and hence none of them can be said to be real. But consider yourself in the light of the three characteristics mentioned above and decide whether or not you who know those objects can satisfy this definition of reality. Verse 253. The body and world are ever changing, but your own existence is consciousness. I am that always exists unceasingly and without undergoing any change. Is it not? Did you not exist without any deficiency even in sleep, where everything else had become non-existent? Therefore, how can there be any other thing that is more real than you? Consider well and say. Verse 254. All the four inner organs or antahakaranas, namely the mind, intellect, knowledge, chitta, and ego, are ever undergoing change and they cease to exist in sleep. But you are always the same. You not. Did any second you exist in your sleep to know you? Who know all the objects that appear in waking and dream? You who are the one and only you alone exist alone existed in sleep. Did you not? Verse 255. Since you alone knew your existence in sleep, and since who knew thus are only one and not two, you alone are the self-shining substance. Swam prakasha vastu. Therefore, know that you, who are the consciousness, I am that always exists and shines without undergoing any change, and without the aid of any other thing alone can be said to be real. Do verse 256. Do not all human beings have a love for sleep? The state in which one abides as self alone, having left aside everything else. If that state of self were not blissful, would anyone have love for sleep? Moreover, is any feeling of misery experienced there in sleep? Consider well and say. Verse 257. Therefore, knowing that you, the self alone, are real, drown in your own non dual blissful existence, consciousness, and experience the state of self abidance, which is completely devoid of unreal body and mind. To experience this state alone is real duty of all good and cultural people. Know that, verse 258, know that those people who have discriminated and clearly understood that self is thus greater and more real than any other thing will surely gain true love for self, and even though forgetfulness they will never have desire for any other thing. Verse 259. Those people who have a clear and unshakable understanding of their own reality, having thus discriminated and concluded that self, the existence, consciousness, I am alone is real and eternal, will gain unlimited love to abide as self and will thus attain the state of one pointed attention. Verse 260. When you attain the non-dual state of self-abidance, see here you have to understand the non-dual state means God and soul are not separate. Both are the same entity. God and self, Atma, are not separate from each other. That is the meaning of non-dual state of self-abidance. By gaining such one-pointedness and such unequaled love for self, you will experience the state of true spiritual discipline, tapas, in which you alone blissfully exist as the direct knowledge of self. Heading is 47, to heed while in inquiry. Verse 261. Being worried on seeing that sleep is brought about during the practice of self inquiry, do not give up self inquiry. This sleep is one among the experiences that will arise during the initial stages of self inquiry. Have no doubt about that. Verse 262. If sleep comes, sleep well. After sleeping thus, as soon as you wake up, fix your attention with earnest love upon the self consciousness I am. When the mind again subsides in that sleep like state, and when waking returns once again, try gradually to experience the one existence consciousness that shines in between these two states. Verse 263. When you practice abiding more and more in the experience of this existence consciousness, which shines between sleep and waking, the sleep that formerly appeared to overcome you will be dispersed, and the waking state in which you identify with the body, day, and cognize eternal objects will not arise and engulf you again. Therefore, abide in this existence consciousness repeatedly and untiringly. Existence consciousness means Satya Chit. And there is another third word is bliss. Satya Chit Anand. Satchidanand. That is the nature of our soul. Verse 264. Since there is the consciousness, I am, the state is not sleep. Since there is a complete absence of thoughts, this state is not waking. It is the state of existence, consciousness, or Satya, which is the undivided nature of God or Akhanda Shiva Savrupa. Therefore, unceasingly abide in this state with great love. Verse 265. Why is it said, abide in this existence consciousness repeatedly and abide in this state with great love? Because until all the tendencies, vasanas, which drive us out of this state, have ceased to exist, this state will seem to come and go. Therefore, until those vasanas have been completely destroyed, it is necessary to have love and to make repeated efforts to abide in this state. Just as the moving of clouds creates the illusion that the moon itself is moving in the opposite direction, the coming and going of the mind's tendencies, vasanas, creates the illusion that our natural state of existence, consciousness, is often coming and going of its own accord. Verse 266. When by this practice of abiding in the state of existence consciousness, this existence consciousness is always experienced to be effortless and inescapably natural, then no harm will result even if sleep, dream, and waking appear to come and go. Verse 267. For those who firmly abide in the unending state of self consciousness, which pervades and transcends the three states of waking, dream, and sleep, that state of existence, consciousness, is the only real state. It is the unlimited whole or Purana, that state in which even the feeling I am making effort to abide does not at all rise. Alone is your natural state of being be thus. The manner of the dawn of knowledge, Janodaya Vidham. Verse 268. Death happens in a split second. Awakening from sleep happens in a split second. Similarly, the destruction of the delusion of individuality happens in just a split second. True knowledge is not something that can be gained and then lost. If a person feels that true knowledge is coming and going, he is still only in the state of practice or abhyasa. It cannot be said that such a person has attained true self knowledge. The perfect awakening into the state of self knowledge happens in just a split second. That state is not attained gradually over a long period of time. All the sadhanas that are practiced over a period of many years are meant only for attaining blemishless maturity. Listen to an apt illustration. After people have placed gunpowder in the iron barrel of a temple cannon, after they have added broken pieces of brick, after they have packed it tight with a ramrod, after they have placed a wick in contact with the powder, and after they have plastered the open end of barrel with the clay, as soon as the charge is ignited, it will explode in a split second with a blast that sounds like thunder. Similarly, after one has learned the truth about the real self through hearing and reading, after one has practiced sadhana for a long time, after one has wept and prayed with heart melting devotion, and after one has thereby attained purity of mind, the knowledge of the reality will instantaneously shine forth in a split second as I am I. As soon as the dawn of self knowledge thus takes place, due to the clear shining of the reality of the state, which is an empty space devoid of objective knowledge, will be spontaneously realized to be the state of true knowledge, which is our beginningless real nature. When even the effort of attending to self thereby merges in silence, that state of mere being in which there is nothing further to do and nothing further to attain at any time alone is the real state. Next is 49th heading self knowledge. Verse 269. One's lying, having forgotten one's existence, consciousness, I am, and have dropped, drooped is sleep. One's being confused, mistaking one's existence, consciousness, I am to be the alien feeling I am this body, is dream, which is of two kinds, known as the waking state and the dream state. One's experiencing one's existence, consciousness, I am, without any forgetfulness, pramada, is the true waking. The former two are unreal, the latter alone is real. Verse 270. One's lying, having forgotten one's existence, consciousness, I am, and having drooped is the world. One's being confused in this body is the soul. One's experiencing one's existence, conscious I am, without any forgetfulness is God. The former two are unreal, the latter alone is but real. In Vedanta, nature, Prakriti, consists of three essential modes or qualities called gunas. These are Sattva guna, Rajo guna, and Tamo guna, respectively. Sattva, the seed or quality of intelligence, purity, and equilibrium, conserves and elevates the working of energy. Rajas, the seed or quality of force or action, creates or activates the workings of energy. Tamas, the seed of inertia and non-intelligence and the denial of sattva and rajas, limits, immobilizes, impedes, deactivates or dissolves what the former two creates and conserve. Verse 271. One's lying, having forgotten one's existence, consciousness, I am, and having drooped is tamoguna. One's being confused, mistaking one's existence, consciousness. I am to be the alien feeling. I am this body is Rajoguna. The power of clear discernment, Sapurna Shakti, which experiences one's existence consciousness. I am is Sattva Guna. Such is the nature of our illusion Maya. That is the concealing of our true nature by the former two gunas is ignorance or deception, avidya Maya.